And welcome to another episode of DIOTALK. I'm Dio. Let's talk. My guest of the evening is a returning guest. He's here to talk about his brand new book. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Antonio Aloia. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor. It's an honor having you and your family. So what's up? I know you got this book. I'm not gonna pronounce the name. I'll let you do that. I don't want to botch it, but it's intriguing. I really like it. I can't wait to, it finally comes out to purchase the book and see the rich history it has.
Right. No, absolutely. Thank you. So, the title of the book is Takahiko Ishikawa, Judo's Quiet Master. Now, that's his name, obviously. So it really is a biography of this judo great. So actually, he really is a judo great. So, I mean, he was Japan's two-time Japan Judo Championship back in 49 and 1949, 1950. So this was like just out of the um, um, the out of the World War II years, and Japan was starting to build itself back up. And he was the guy to win like the first two national judo championships. And then you know we'll get into this, but he winds up finding his place here in Philadelphia, um, and he winds up staying here for like 20 some years, just building up this whole judo scene in Philadelphia. And then he moves down to Virginia Beach, and he makes some inroads there until he has to return back to Japan for health reasons. But I mean, yeah, it was it was a honestly a roller coaster ride of writing it and researching it, because there wasn't really a lot of stuff on Ishikawa when I first started. I mean, to be honest, when I looked at the Wikipedia page, which is always a great place to start, right?
Yeah.
There's only like 100 and I don't know, it was like between 100 and 200 words for that entry. I'm like, wow, there's like nothing on this guy. But then once I started to talk with everybody, or at least his students that were still around, I mean, it wound up becoming a much bigger um, a much bigger story, and a much more it's a guy who actually experienced some really really cool and some really bad stuff. So yeah, that's like the long and short of it.
Oh man, it sounds like a journey in itself. How did you stumble upon this? Like, what made you, start digging and researching, ultimately writing a book?
Right. So I started judo at Westchester University. So I started at the club there, the judo club there, about 2018-ish. And so the club wound up being sponsored by this main school in Bryn Mawr called Mainline Judo. They have since moved their residence, their building from one place to another during COVID. But while I was going there, both to the club and to the school down in Bryn Mawr, there was a black and white picture of Takahiko Ishikawa, but it was just his portrait with his glasses on, and like, hey, who's that? And no one really knew except for like, the really old heads there at the club. So once I found out it's like Takahiko Ishikawa, it's like, okay, well, the historian in me was like, let me try and figure more about this, this guy out, since most Japanese martial art places have a picture of the founder or somebody that was important to the art to them at the front. So it was kind of like, okay, well, let me see what I can find out about this guy. There was, like I said before, the Wikipedia article was like, there's nothing really there. And I think there was like one other source I think I found on a website that's now defunct, that had some of the story, but then I later find out it wasn't the whole story. But, there wasn't a lot of stuff on this guy, on Ishikawa, that like really spoke to his legacy, his impact, his just his dealings within American judo. So it was at that point, it's like, well, let me get my hands dirty and let me just start going at it. You know what I mean? So I wound up finding actually lo and behold, the main instructor at mainline judo um, was like a later student of Ishikawa. So I wound up talking with him. I wound up getting an interview with him, and he wound up pointing me to a few different people um, who are also, both later and slightly earlier students of Ishikawa. Um, that was a lot of going through email and Zoom and everything else. That real like getting my hands dirty was actually like 2 years after I started doing judo. So um, yeah, judo really started it, and it kind of really helped that I was already doing some research for Aikido, or I did some Aikido.
Hmm.
Sorry, some research for Aikido, hence the Aikido Comes to America book. So it was kind of like, hey, this is old hat for me for a little bit. So that's kind of how I got into it, and it just kind of boomed from there. It took me about like 4 years to get to the point where I sat down and I started to write everything out, because there were some things that like I just needed to see what the narrative was before I could insert more things or take some things out, because with the fact that there wasn't a lot of information on him to begin with, there's a lot of hearsay and a lot of dates that were kind of, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but they overlapped, and they didn't seem like they overlapped the right way. So there was a
Right.
lot of that frustration part. But all in all, it's it was a fun experience.
Awesome. Was it um who did you like besides the instructors? Like, did you get in touch with his family? Like, how were their feedbacks when you told them you're trying to write a book about his legacy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wound up getting in touch with one of Ishikawa's daughters.
Oh, nice.
They're his he wound up having three children. One passed away a bit ago. So his daughters are still around. I got in touch with the youngest daughter, and she's down in Virginia Beach. She when I reached out to her, she was I should say I reached out to her via email, and then she wound up texting me. So we wound up doing a lot of text back and forth. And from what I could um, gather with the text, since texts don't really um, express feelings that much,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It seemed like she was supportive. It seemed like she had some sort of excitement to it. Um, there was a lot of and I want talking to her on the phone a few times, because then she just like dumped all this information on me, which was absolutely great, because it wound up being like an interview sort of thing. But her thing was like, hey, if you're going to do this, I want to make sure that you're having all the right information. Um, so there was a lot of stuff that she mentioned that no one else really mentioned, which was actually great, because there was like an insider's view of her father's legacy, but also of how her father interacted with his benefactor or his students or his American students, and then how he interacted with his Japanese or his Japanese American friends, because um, you know he went being an immigrant from Japan to um, the United States. So English wasn't his first language, obviously. So there were some things that he felt more comfortable with being being around his
His
countrymen or
people, yeah.
descendants of. Yeah, actually, his daughter wound up explaining that he would take um, like monthly trips up to New York City and play this Asian strategy game called Go, where you have black and white stones, and the object of the game is to capture as much territory as you can. Um, that's a high level thing, but it's a lot more in depth than that. But he would go up there and would play Go with everybody at shoot, I forget what the place was called, but it was literally just where all these Japanese immigrants and Japanese Americans just kind of congregated, and they all just did everything together. You know what I mean? So he was a completely different person, so to speak, with his compatriots than when he was teaching on the mat. Um, but no, to get back to your previous point, his daughter was very helpful. She was very supportive. in this whole research and soon to be publication of it. So it was actually great to have that support, and in some indirect way, kind of like the blessing from the Ishikawa family to
Nice.
make sure all of this was done in the proper way to best, um, remember and best, yeah, just best remember Ishikawa and his contributions.
That's amazing. Was there anything for you that, like, doing your research and educating yourself, writing this book, that stood out to you the most?
Yeah, so like Ishikawa wasn't really big into empire building. He was really big into, hey, there's a mat and people are here to teach, or people are here to learn judo. So I'm going to teach judo. There wasn't a lot of, I don't want to say foresight or ambition, but he wasn't really a big political person. And in some ways that kind of went and bit him in the butt later on, but hindsight's always 2020. But his real passion, for was judo, and it didn't matter if he was teaching out of a shed or he was teaching in a basement, or he was teaching somewhere in Philly, or a much bigger room uh, in Virginia Beach. He was there to teach judo, and it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to teach judo so I can get into this cool higher echelon club and be whatever. He just wanted to teach judo. I mean, he did not. So that sort of dedication to the fact of like, hey, I'm not going to be political about my judo, of like, hey, this is what we need to do with the judo um, community, and pass edicts and all this other stuff. He was like, well, no, we'll just do it on the mat, and if we need clinics, we'll do clinics because it's still on the mat. But he wasn't one to go out and be like, hey, I'm going to run for this so we can change things. He was really trying to do it at a grassroots level. Um, so that's one of the things that really stuck out with me, because it was just like he was in it for purely judo. Sure, he may have had some of his own um, uh, ideas on how things should work, but it seemed to him that he didn't want to go that route. He just wanted to go onto the mat, teach judo, let people do judo, and then have people learn from him and have him just give what he knew of judo people. So again, that was a big part that kind of stood out during my research.
Yeah, he loved the art, the essential. He loved the art of judo.
Hands down, he did. It was technically second to go, but in the context of judo, it was just, this is what I'm supposed to do for judo action back Japan prior to the war. Um, so he got that whole thing of like, well, I went to college for this. I mean, he technically went to a college for his own academic stuff. Then he went
Mhm.
to a um a specific judo college. I'm blanking on the name right now, but he went to a specific judo college, which that coupled with his two-time winning of the All Japan Judo Championship, he wound up getting a job teaching the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department judo, which was like the highest thing you could do judo wise in Japan. So like he was technically set for. I mean, he was put through the schooling, he was put through the rigor to do judo, and then you transplant him from um, Japan to America, and he's like, well, I know how to do judo. I know how to teach judo, and that's what I'm going to do. Um, so having him only knowing this skill, but then also being like, well, this is my way of giving back.
Mhm.
You know, again, that was just a big thing that I really noticed throughout the entire research.
Nice. What was like interviewing those who learned from him, his students?
Um, excuse me. For some, actually, for many of them, it was like going back down memory lane. A lot of them, a lot of his later students, like from the 70s or like the late 60s into the early 70s, they were all like teenagers or young adolescents, or maybe even just getting into um, college age. So their interaction with Ishikawa was vastly different from those who were with him, say in in the earlier 60s, or even like the mid 60s, because they were of a different age. They were a little bit older. Actually, one in particular mentioned um, mentioned that finding Ishikawa was really beneficial for him, because the interviewee, Koji, he was a Japanese immigrant. He was actually a Japanese transplant. He was part of a like a college transfer program.
Hmm.
He went going to Temple over here in Philadelphia, because there was a Temple program in Japan, I think at the time too. So he wound up being transferred over here to Temple proper, and finding Ishikawa really helped Koji um, acclimate and assimilate probably a lot better or a lot quicker than he would have if he didn't find Ishikawa. There was just something with that honestly, that Japanese background, that was like, hey, this is something that was needed for Koji. And I found that to be like really inspiring, that since now martial arts are considered as like a cultural experience, a cultural activity in some sense. So to find that somebody back in the 60s was using martial arts as a way to get back to what they knew back in their homeland or in their heritage or in their culture, it's just it's just absolutely great. And he Koji winds up crediting Ishikawa for well crediting Ishikawa and Judo for helping him get through not only that turbulent period of his life, but also like setting the foundations
Hmm.
for everything else that he wound up achieving later on. So 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 there was that part. The other part with talking to these students is that there was a lot of like I mentioned before, there's a lot of hearsay. So like with the later students, there there were some discrepancies on um where he was at any given year, or when, excuse me, or when so and so passed, or this, that, and the other thing, when when they moved down the street, or they moved 15 blocks over to the other way. There was there were some differences in how they relayed that information, and sometimes asking those pointed questions of like, hey, well, when did so and so really pass? um it wasn't really a straight answer, because they were trying to remember what somebody else has said before, sort of thing, or that they just didn't know and they were trying to put pieces together right right when I asked them. So in one way, it was a little bit frustrating to create an actual timeline for Ishikawa, and for Ishikawa, his life here in America, and even partly of his family's lives in America, while he was making Philadelphia's home for 20 plus years. Um, but then that's kind of what most oral historians have to deal with, is that it's kind of he said, she said, and then
Yeah,
trying to figure out
the
where that.
inconsistency in stories, and because also it's like it's based off opinions, right? Because he could
Mhm.
be a great judo master, and somebody disliked him for X, Y, and Z reasons. So you had to deal with that. It's
Yeah,
challenging. It's challenging.
yeah. So then I I won't trying to having to find a middle ground between what one person said and their reasons why Ishikawa did X, Y, or Z, which was maybe on this end, and then you have another person saying, talking about the same exact event, but saying, well, these were the reasons over here on
Hmm.
this end, right? So then I'm trying to find this middle thing that says, well, there was, there has to be some validity to this side, and there has to be some validity to this side because they were both students of Ishikawa, just like,
Hmm.
just give or take a year or something like that. So like, not everything can't be wrong from one person. So trying to find the timeline, trying to find that balance between what one person said as opposed to another person said was a little bit frustrating. And I know I had to step away from writing a good number of times before I'm like, before I actually pick up my computer and throw it against the wall, I'm just gonna go. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, because it's difficult that because he one can say or argue he was a founding father for his location in Philly for judo.
Mhm,
So when you're starting this off and you're coming basically alone with your family, and now you have to build in a place where it's unknown.
mhm.
Like it's not the same when you're doing it with somebody that has the same culture and understanding. So it's
Yeah,
hard. It's hard.
yeah, absolutely. It was, and from the research I found is that the reason that Ishikawa chose Philadelphia uh, was one, in New York, Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, there were already like a few schools within those
Vicinities.
states. Yeah, so that like something smack dab in the middle wouldn't be too bad of a thing. But then, secondly, there was a major benefactor, Helen Foose, who really um, took Ishikawa and said, "Hey, we're going to do judo here." And Ishikawa, being the judo guy, he's like, "Well, if I can teach judo, I can be happy." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, um, so Helen Foose became the benefactor, the funder, the thing that made the Ishikawa Judo Club like a really big thing within that area um, from the mid 50s until 1974, 75 ish. Um, so yeah, so having it smack dab in the middle of all those different states that had judo um, was was something that made it a little easier, but still, again, you're coming into a city and it's like, yes, it's smack dab in the middle of everything. We have this one small judo club over here, but they still needed to build it up. So not to say it wasn't hard. It was difficult at times, but to build anything up with anyone new is always time consuming, frustrating, and costly. So yeah, so for 20 years, that's what Ishikawa and Foose did for that time.
Was there anything that you found that might be shocking or troubling within his legacy that might be controversial? Uh, because judo, it's their community, at least what I've seen, is very private, very they take things serious.
Hmm.
So like if anything's any discrepancy pops up or disagreement, they're gonna approach you or approach the book.
Well, there wasn't really much of like controversy within his life in relation to judo. I mean, the only big thing that I found that was a major issue for him was this referee exam idea in the 70s, from like 1970, 71 to 73. So background on that, there was there's a guy, Koiwai, who used to be the head of the the Philadelphia Judo Club. Helen Foose brings in Ishikawa to the Philadelphia Judo Club because she was a student, and people say how it went one way, how it went another way, but the fact of the matter is that Ishikawa came in. He was the highest ranked judo person outside of Japan and in America, while Koiwai was not. so leadership turned over to Ishikawa. There wound up being, again, this is about 19 the mid 1950s, 56, 57, something like that. So people start gravitating more towards Ishikawa because, again, he's like sixth, seventh, eighth dan, eighth degree black belt, whatever it is, in the late 50s, and Koiwai was just like fourth degree black belt. So of course people are going to go towards a higher rank. So that creates a split, and Ishikawa and Foose creates the Ishikawa Judo Club, and Koiwai takes over the Philadelphia Judo Club name and moves out somewhere. Fast forward, Koiwai is now the president of the USJF, which is the United States Judo Federation, which is a big judo organization for America, and Ishikawa is a part of that during that time. So Koiwai says, "Hey, why don't we do referee stuff? Everyone that's part of the organization has to do this referee exam." And they try to get. I know I'm skipping over some of the story, but the main part is that.
Oh, I can order the book for that. Don't worry about that.
But Koiwai basically says, "Hey, everyone in the organization has to take this test. Ishikawa, you are not exempt from this." Again, Ishikawa is the highest rank judo person in America. He was the go-to person for refereeing regional and national events. So like he was the guy to go to. It's like, "Hey, Ishikawa sensei, we need you to ref this, the final three fights of this national tournament or whatever it is, right?" So, and Ishikawa being Ishikawa, he just says, "Yeah, I'll do it because it's judo," right? When Koiwai presents this to Ishikawa, he's like, I like Ishikawa's like, "I don't need to do this because I've done all of this and I'm of a higher rank than you. So let's not have this, let's not talk about this." And then Koiwai does a little underhanded move where he's like, "Yeah, okay, well then, Ishikawa, why don't you ref for this tournament?" And this whole refereeing for this tournament winds up being the referee exam that Ishikawa doesn't want to take, right? So unbeknownst to Ishikawa, but beknownst to us. So Koiwai, I'm not sure why Koiwai never said anything to Ishikawa himself. Koiwai winds up talking to one of Ishikawa's friends, and Koiwai says to the friend, "Yeah, your friend Ishikawa, he failed the referee exam." And the friend's like, "What the F you talking about? This is Ishikawa, and plus you didn't tell him that this was going to be a test. WTF, right?" All that gets back to Ishikawa, and Ishikawa is super pissed, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna resign." He sends out a memo, a memo to everybody within the organization. He says, "I'm going to join the USJA, which the United States Judo Association." It's kind of like USAF, but slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
There's like with anything, there's many different organizations for martial arts, and on the broads things, like they're kind of the same.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So to go back to answer your question, I know I kind of filled in a bunch of story time here, but that's like the only like real controversial thing that I found throughout his tenure here in the United States is that there was this back and forth, slightly petty, slightly revengeful thing between him and Koiwai. Um, and even when that happened, he split, and that kind of seemed to be the end of it. There wasn't any real talk of either why or what the lasting uh, impacts of the split, because he wound up going to another organization, and most likely at that time you had he had younger the younger group of students that I talked to
Mm.
previously. So you know there was a lot of things that those younger students didn't get to experience or talk about, or again, teenagers being teenagers, they just didn't care.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So again, to go back to your question, there wasn't really much of like a controversy anywhere. It was just some political BS, and then he just keeps good doing what he was doing, and that kind of seemed to be the end of it for him, at least. For
yeah.
for Koroi, I'm not really sure what happened there, but
Just drama.
major drama.
Yeah. What was the reason you named your book, and I'm gonna do my best to pronounce his name. I do apologize ahead of time. Takahiko Ishikawa, Judo Quiet Master. Why Quiet Master?
Um, well, kind of like I covered before, but Ishikawa wasn't really political. He wasn't politically
Mm,
active in the judo community or the judo organizations. Yes, like I said before, he was, he offered his refereeing services. He was asked for his refereeing services. Um, I think there were some points where he was part of a larger grading committee. But like those I don't want to say bureaucratic, but I think bureaucratic's the word. Those bureaucratic dealings within an
hmm.
organization, he wasn't really part and parcel to it. So it was just like, here's a mat, let me teach judo, or let me
And keep
ref, because
and keep it moving.
yeah, really, because it's just this is what I'm here to do. I'm not here to get president of the organization to do anything. It's just here we are. Let's just do judo. So so in that sense, he's quiet. He's quiet to like the larger judo community, in the sense that he wasn't politically active. He was teaching. He was he was active in that sense, but he wasn't active in, hey, I'm going to go and teach up here and then teach over there and teach right rather right around the corner. He stayed really in Philadelphia for his 20 plus year tenure in the city.
That's amazing. I can't wait for the book to come out. Um, for those who I want you to break it down in a way for those who like don't know what judo is. To
Mm-hmm.
have a better understanding, whoever listen to or watching the podcast can understand what is judo, because judo, the times I've heard people talk about judo, it's mostly like older gentlemen,
Mm-hmm.
or those who have come from other countries over here.
Okay. So, judo is a Japanese grappling system. Um, it has stand-up grappling and ground grappling, but it's mostly known for its stand-up grappling. It is based on this push-pull paradigm. So if your partner pushes you, you actually pull them and then throw them. And in the reverse, if they pull you, you push and then you throw them the other way. So it's gentle so judo translates into the gentle way. It's gentle in the fact that we're not slicing and dicing people. Um, but it's using at the core, using that force that your partner gives you to do a throw. Um, it is an Olympic sport, and because it is an Olympic sport since 1964, that aspect has changed how judo looks, comparatively speaking. So if you're talking about what judo looked like in the 50s, it has now changed what judo looks like today. So today there is, I mean, I'm gonna get more into like the technical aspects of it. Today, from what I've been seeing, judo's a little bit more of a full manhandle thing, in regards to how the rules are set up. Um, in the interviews that I spoke with Ishikawa's students and the like, they've mentioned that there was some, a certain a certain sense, sorry, of technicality or like precision that, well, not only Ishikawa had, but some of those older judo guys had. So, um, while I'm not saying that there is not technical precision today, I think it's a little bit different from how it was demonstrated from previously, especially from Ishikawa's time. Um, did that adequately answer your question?
You did. You did. You give more than enough.
Awesome, thank you.
No, it's I think it's important because, gotta break this thing down because we live in what 2024 and we're like jujitsu is the main thing, right? And every time I have on the show, we talk about the same thing. Jujitsu is the main thing, and there's other amazing martial arts that you can learn so much from. And it's important to have that balance. Like right now we build fighters to go straight to ground and pound and do all that stuff, but it's not like we're losing the history, the rich history, the like you mentioned earlier in the earlier and what and where his peers would practice judo to reflect and remember and connect from their
Mhm,
culture back from where they came from. So I think it's amazing that you took out the time to shed some light on somebody who really was a contribution to the art, and held it with prestige and honestly with love because you telling me all you really want to do is do some judo. Let me teach you.
mhm.
And doing it out of love rather, now it's everything, it's a financial gain,
Mhm. Well,
like
I mean, you say that, and there's multiple instances from students that that said flat out that Ishikawa wasn't. Well, let me make sure that I'm not putting this guy in a bad light. Ishikawa wasn't doing this for the money. He wanted to make sure that people were coming, no matter what. One story that I remember is that a guy or a student had an injury, um, and he's like, well, I can't come, I can't train, can't do anything. Ishikawa calls him up and says, yo, dude, I'm using the modern lingo.
yeah.
He's like, yo, dude, just come in, train as much as you can. Don't worry about the mat fear, whatever. So he's like, okay. And then later on, when he gets better, and he's like, okay, well, I should pay Ishikawa back from like the month or so that I got for free. So he goes to pay, not Ishikawa, because Ishikawa didn't want to touch money. Um, he the student goes to pay the secretary who was in charge of collecting dues. Ishikawa saw this and he's like, no, 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 no. You pay what you paid before, not this new rate. so 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 like the money thing didn't really matter to him. He was like, you're coming in, you're bringing in your own students, you're bringing in yourself to train. It doesn't matter that I'm not making a living off of this, or making buku bucks. He just wanted people to be on the mat, and then
Doing what he
if
loved.
exactly, and maybe even take one off to the side and monologue for like 3 seconds, and then
Yeah.
but yeah, kind of like you said there, it was a different mentality of how people approached martial arts, or just even anything that we would term labors of love.
Yeah.
So it is kind of important to preserve those kinds of outlooks on life, whether it is from history or from now. I'm not trying to give myself a pat on the back for it, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to compliment what you were saying before, about having these different views on the martial arts, especially from the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very important. And thank you for doing this. It's amazing.
No, well, thank you for having me on here. So I mean, thank you.
So how is it that we're going? Are you going on tour to promote the book? Does set up shot on judo tournaments? Go show up to judo schools, like, because they need to know about this. They need
Right.
this. There's this history out there.
That has been, and I no lie, I was actually thinking about this and talking about this, about like a week or two ago. So I do plan on it. Maybe much later this year in like quarter 4, when I have a big box of my own books. But sometime in the future, that is what I'm going to definitely consider, especially here in the Philadelphia area,
Hmm.
to see if there's any tournaments or schools that would that would like to have a sponsor. Um, Definitely.
Nice. How can they get the book, buy the book? What do you need to do? I know you did Indiegogo, get some profit, help you expand.
Right. So right now we're still in that Indiegogo phase. Um, so if you want to come and support, you can go to Indiegogo.com, search up Ishikawa, and honestly, the first thing that you see there is 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 that campaign. You click on it, and you can support for as low as $5. If you want to, sorry, we have some more tiers. We have for sorry.
Yeah, they're level perks.
Yeah,
Level perks. The more you contribute, the certain amount you contribute, you get more perks. You get the bookmark, then you get a bookmark and an ebook, and then you
mhm,
get the bookmark, ebook, and then the actual book. So the more you go, contribute, helping them, growing this amazing organization, learning rich about judo and martial arts, the more you get.
absolutely. Thank you for that. But yes, absolutely. At you know you know for your support, you will get something back. So you can choose what honestly what you would like to get back for your support. And I am grateful for any sort of support, even if it's just listening to this podcast. So again, thank you for that, and thank you to the viewers, listeners, for listening to this, and for those who are going to go and support the campaign. So thank you again.
Mm. Are you still doing are you writing articles on your website?
Oh yes I am. So and actually that's a thing I want to touch on. Starting later this month or next month, I'm going to be starting to post excerpts from the interviews of the students that I did over the past 4 years. So if you want to see what some of these students have said to me, to the questions I asked them, just subscribe to Martial Arts of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, and within a few more weeks, you will start seeing them and actually get to see, um, honestly, a firsthand account of how they interacted with Ishikawa on some sort of level with their time with him. So look out for that.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Before we go, please tell the people they can find you at.
Absolutely. So you can find me at martialarthistory.com. You can find me at Martial Arts Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, on Facebook, um, at Martial Arts History. Same thing with Instagram, Twitter, even though I think it's called X now.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how they're
Yeah, you gotta get
doing it.
Threads now. Threads. That's the most recent one now. So it's
Yeah. I am on Reddit as well. That is martial arts. No, MAYTT history. I'm also on Amazon. You can just search up my name, and also on YouTube at MAYTT history. No, I'm sorry. That's actually martial arts of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I have way too many handles that like I just can't keep straight.
Listen,
so
when the episode
I'm
comes out,
sorry.
they'll be down in the description. Don't worry about it. They'll be down in the description. Just make sure to go follow him, go support him, go contribute some support and purchase your book today. So when it comes out, you already have it. And share. Most important, share. Shout him out. Share his content. DM him if you need you. It's martial arts here. You know, we gotta show some love. And make sure to go follow me on Instagram at Mr.JimSartain. Go like and subscribe our YouTube channel, DIOTALK TV. Please subscribe. Please share. The best way to support all these amazing historian martial arts, all these amazing entrepreneurs that come on the show is by sharing and subscribing, and it's totally free. And make sure you follow me on Facebook. I'm releasing all my episodes. You can follow me at Dio Mark King Diaz. I'm out, guys. Have a good night.